All right. Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Rimka, and I have a very special guest with me today. We haven't met in person, but this is Phil Escott, and it's actually a lot of, Phil's influence that helped me make the transition into the carnivore way of eating. And you don't know this, Phil, but you actually are one of the people that your videos helped bridge me. I've been studying Dr. Jack Kruse for years as well, been in his forum for years. And there were certain topics I just was afraid of. I'm like, I can't go down that rabbit hole. And you gave me, and this is a topic I want to cover later, we won't lead with it, but you present your information and your education in such a way, it's so soft and gentle, and you have the ability to take a lot of intellectual blah, 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 and make it right here where you can understand it, where it's still sciencey, but not overwhelming and frustrating. And it was deuterium in particular that I was just avoiding. I'm like, I don't want to even deal with what they're talking about now, because mitochondria and lights and all this other stuff, this is enough going on, right? And you made it very simple for me. And then I dove into it. I'm no expert in it by any means, but I understand it, and I actually teach it, to my students as well, and help them make that shift to be like, right? You see, there's so much more at play. So you're very good at helping people see the big picture in healthcare, and I think just bigger kind of system brainwashing they might be going through that's kind of keeping them trapped in many areas of their life, not just health, even though that's kind of your lead. I think your education helps broaden their minds to think of the world from a totally different perspective. So thank you. And you were one of the people that everybody asks, what made you switch? I would want to say you're one of the people, because I liked the way you had to say things, and it made total sense to me. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to try it for a month. And 20 months later, or something like that, I just sit and eat my steak and I'm good. But so introduce yourself to the people and tell them, because I'm not sure a lot of the people who like me, I don't think they know who you are. And I just want to tell you guys, if you like my tone, you're going to love Phil, because I think we're actually very similar in the way we talk and teach.
Oh, Stephanie, thank you so much. And thanks for asking me on. I mean, it's been a long time now that I've been enjoying your amazing humor on my group, and your real amazing expertise as well. I've listened to a lot of your stuff, and honestly, you're so brilliant. And I'm absolutely stunned that I would have any kind of influence over you, really, because I don't have a scientific mind at all. I just take these things. I listen to it. It's like I've been binging Paul Saladino's podcast recently, and I take in about 10% of it, but it's enough to know what to do, isn't it? And you were mentioning Jack Kruse, his stuff. And Jack, I found his forum when I was trying to heal my own psoriatic arthritis back in like 2010, 2011, 2012. And the science was so deep. It was so difficult to get a handle on it. And you say I've kind of translated a bit for you. That makes me feel amazing, because I have my friend Graham Norbury who kind of translates it for me, and a young friend as well, Matt Maruka, who is like Jack's sort of protege, and I talk to him quite a bit, and his interviews have kind of demystified it, because Jack is very deep on this. So, and then I got to know Jack, and he's a lovely guy. Sometimes he comes across a bit abrasive in text, but he's a lovely guy. He did the foreword to my book as well, which blew me away. Yeah, he's great. I love Jack. He's one of the real geniuses around now.
Yes, yes. But I have to defend him a lot, I have to say, you guys. So big influences on me. I am very grateful the man has looked at my lab and told me my genetics and stuff like that. I have never met him, but just I'm in his paying monthly, right, for years, not as long as you, right? So you're one of the people, yes, you've bridged. So I want you to know that and acknowledge that for yourself. You've helped, I would wager to say, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. I know your YouTube channel is quite big. You really reached a lot of people, Phil. So just please take that in and own it, and know you are impacting. You impacted me. I deeply appreciate it. And I think it's important to take information like what Cruz is doing, who really speaks to more of a physician and a researcher, and I am a clinician, so I can understand a lot of it. And then there's a lot you're like, I got to tap out on this because, and he does it on purpose. He wants you to tap out. I mean, that's the point. He wants to make you go, okay, that's way too much quantum physics for me to handle. Just what do I do, right? And you and I have kind of taken on, you do this. You take that information and put it into practical, applicable ways that people can help change and upgrade their lives. So please own that. You're doing an amazing job of it. And
that's so sweet of you, honestly. Thank you. Well, I suppose I had to, because I had to have something, I had something practical I needed to fix. And
it's serious. Tell the story. I've sent your book link to several people I know who are young, 18, 19, 20, dealing with this. And then their moms have come to me lost. And I'm like, look, here, this is something you're not going to hear from. Everything you're doing is not working. Why don't you try something else? And I tell the people about what happened and what you did.
Well, I was, I've always been interested in health and fitness. And I come from a more sort of yogic background, I guess. I was much more into all the meditation and Indian culture and that kind of thing. So I got caught up in the transcendental meditation movement, and ate a whole load of vegetarian Indian food and rice and dal, thinking it was healthy for many years. Even wrote a book on it back in '96 on Ayurvedic medicine, that kind of thing. And I thought I knew everything. And I ran a gym in the late '90s, and I was writing for Mountain Bike magazine. So I was doing a hell of a lot of exercise. I got really quite big, never really got lean. I was never obese, but I never got lean. But 10 years later, with no training and more vegetarian food, I was pretty fat. And then things started to kick off, you know, little telltale things, just in digestive things. And my back was always agony, and iritis came along in early 2010. And that's a real warning flag for something horribly arthritic. And then in the autumn,
tell them what that is. Not everybody might know what that word means.
Iritis is an agonizing thing. It's when the lens kind of glues onto the iris. And so you can get the pupil is kind of deformed, and that's in the later stages of it, but they didn't diagnose it early. So it was horrible. I mean, the pain of refocusing, like looking up into the corner and focusing back at your hand, was agony. And then it started to fill up with all the sort of white blood vessel, white cells, you know, to white blood cells to try and go for this inflammation. It's basically arthritis in the eye. And you know, I'm very grateful to the medical profession for just, you know, some steroid drops to get rid of it and save my sight. I had it about 4 bouts of it, I think. One I managed to get rid of on my own. I had to manage to turn it around, but the rest I had to go and get one time an injection into my eye. That was hideous. When it went into the macula, and everybody started turning into demons. But, you know, I mean, it's like you know so well, autoimmunity is basically the same thing. Wherever it hits, it's
both the different locations.
Yeah,
exactly. Based on probably your genetic predispositions, mitochondrial haplotypes. Yeah, people sometimes confuse. I'm like, you guys, it's all the same thing. Some people just have it in joints. Some people have it skin. Some people. Yeah,
it can hit anywhere. It's this, and the docs say, oh, well, it's because you've got this HLA-B27 gene, you know, and then you look it up, and you find that people with arthritis have all got this. Or most of them have, but then a little bit more digging, you find out that most people who have this don't get arthritis ever. So it's epigenetics, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah. So then in the autumn, one ankle just kind of blew up, like I'd sprained it. And then a couple of weeks later, the other ankle, then a knee, and then all sorts of just chaos reigned. So being a vegetarian, or mostly, you know, I'd very, very plant-based, but every now and again, if I trained, I'd throw in some eggs and chicken. But
and how old were you at this time?
In 2010, I was 48.
Okay, 2010, okay.
Yeah, and it was just horrific. So I thought, as any vegetarian does, I need to go more plant-based. So I did the old vegan thing, and I went all the way through to fruitarian, you know, raw vegan and fruitarian. It didn't work. Yes, I did it right, vegans who tell me I didn't. I did it right 100 different ways.
And didn't you have, like, even, this is what usually happens. I was a vegan for 12 years, vegetarian 14. What ends up happening, you know, symptoms are, you're getting stricter and stricter, and whatever is going on, things are getting worse and worse and worse for you. And it's always, it's detox. You're
Detox.
detoxing and you're detoxing, and it's like everything's just. But I mean, it's just you know,
Yeah.
I'm you know what I mean. Was that happening with you?
Yes, until you start, you know, detoxing your menstrual cycles away and detoxing your teeth out and that kind of thing. I mean, I ended up really emaciated. I detoxed away a load of muscle and probably bone density as well, and it took a long time to come back from it. I was sort of, I'm 5'10", I was like 120 pounds or something, down from about 200, 210 maybe. And it was yeah, it was quite scary, particularly when I went keto and added cold thermogenesis, and I ended up really ripped as well. So then I looked like a real absolute starvation victim. And then I found Jack's work. I mean, there was a time when I was listening to all the nonsense of Durian Rider and Freely the Banana Girl and all that crap, and I got into fruitarianism. And oh, my teeth. I mean, I've been really lucky with my teeth. I've only have one filling, and they've held up brilliantly. And I got them all myself. You know, they're never as pretty as Americans' teeth, but they work really great. But they were starting to get really, really sore. You know, all the enamel was breaking down, and all this fruit. And
I have never thought that jumping to that level was a smart thing. And I mean, the fruitarian thing kind of blows my mind, Phil.
Well, it's just
love that you went there. You know, like we're like, wow, what was I? And it's late, and we all do it. You know, it's like no different than kind of, to me, these choices we make, ways of eating that seem extreme. It's like, you know, bad finance purchases and overextending your credit cards. We just all make mistakes, and I think, but with the way of eating issues, it becomes so cult-like. And like, if you change, you're a failure, you're a quitter, you were never one of us, you know, you lose your friends and tribe you were in. It becomes, versus being able to say, wow, I really have been overspending and I really need to get my shit together. I need to get to a financial person. Like, people are okay with making a change. Like, wow, I think we should downsize our house because we can't afford this right now. That seems okay to do. It's very logical. What we're doing is hurting us. We should change. And you don't lose all your friends and family and your identity from that. But with food culture, with these vegan, raw, fruitarian, and even paleo, carnivore, right? It can get to where people are identifying like this is their pack and their community and their tribe, because we need that tribal, it's primal, right? And now most of us don't have it because we live in these little homes isolated from each other. So I feel like that's probably a part of the psychology of why it's so hard to admit, you know, the downward spiral. And it's like, one, the ego has to go, oops, I made a big mistake. This wasn't it. I did this to myself, you know, and then am I going to lose what I've been a part of? And I have to change my identity, right? Was that stuff you, because I see that a lot with my patients, and that's a lot of the type of work I have to do with them is all around that before I can get them to have the consciousness to actually change their behaviors. It might take me months of that, so they can have enough forgiveness for themselves and enough courage to actually reclaim their health and not care about the past mistake, and for, you know what I mean, to even admit it. So that's kind of what you were going through.
Well, I see it over and over again now, and I did lose a few friends over it, but really in my case, I didn't have any actual vegan friends. They're mostly sort of the spiritual Indian influence, lacto-ovo vegetarians. And so they're not so militant. Some of them were, you know, a little bit. But I just see it now in the vegan culture. Like, I have a friend, Tony Sayers, who was quite a passionate vegan, and he's just come out now, and he's gone. I don't think he's fully carnivore, but the attacks he has on his page are just unbelievable. I go in and help him out now and again, because they're just crazy. They're so aggressive. And yeah, I started to see this later on, but at the time, to be honest, I didn't care about anything. I was just in so much pain. It wasn't like I had a little bit of digestive issues and a load of vegan friends. I mean, I had no vegan friends and complete agony throughout all the joints in my body.
All right, so you found Jack and you started doing so.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I had so much cognitive impairment. I was walking around like proper full-blown Alzheimer's, and burning food and leaving taps running and spraying all over the floor and all that sort of thing. And my daughter, who is 11 now, she was, you know, a couple of years old at the time, and she was having to come and tell me that I'd left something on somewhere, or something else was burning or flooding. And I decided, I discovered Natasha Campbell McBride, and I was sort of thinking about it, you know, the gaps thing.
Yeah.
And because I didn't really have any moral issues with it. I just wanted to find out the truth. What would be the best healing thing for reducing inflammation? But then I found Jack, and he was on about fish a lot. And I thought, well, I tell you what, I'll just do a week on fish. And I think I just ate sardines for a week. And after a couple of days, all my faculties came back. It didn't take long. It took a lot longer to rebuild the body, but at least I could think straight. And that was really the gateway to it all. And then just got into everything else, the whole thing. I think in that time of vegetarianism and veganism, I tried so many hundreds of things. I mean, I had this ridiculous, fortunately I had some money at the time, which is all gone now, but it was money well spent. And I could sit around for a couple of years and just research. And I mean, I had a routine that was probably about 3 hours, you know, every day, of all these supplements and herbs and pills and enemas and God knows what. And then my highlight of the month was liver flushing, which is probably the only one thing I've carried out of this as quite useful. But that was the only 3 days where I had almost no inflammation, unless I sat in a cold bath for a really long time, about once every couple of hours, and then I could keep it at bay. Or go out and roll around in the snow. It was winter at the time, I remember. But it was such a fascinating journey. And then I discovered the gaps thing, and sort of added that in as well. And the bone broths and all that kind of thing, the regular thing, and then went through the normal cycle of paleo, keto, carnivore, you know.
Exactly. It's really the normal cycle. It's kind of that's what I do with my patients. You just kind of meet them where they are and figure out what step we need to do to help them get better results. So, yeah.
But I mean, since then it's been great. Since 2013, when really I had it under control, and a couple of years keto then, and I wrote my book at that time. I wish I'd been carnivore when I wrote the book, but then the book covers so many other things, like the whole.
Okay, and in the book, say the title, because it's your journey.
Oh yeah, it's called Arthritis: The Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me, because it taught me so many things. It's taught me things that can keep my family safe for generations. It taught me stuff that fixed myself. It taught me not to be such a big baby. I mean, I'm a terrible big baby. I'm just an old hippie, you know, who, when I started off this process, I hadn't had a haircut since '79, you know, and I had the first one in 2011. It's dreadlocks all the way down to my knees, and I'm a drummer, I'm a musician, and so just a tremendously irresponsible lifestyle. And I did most of my growing up. I mean, I'm still a very naughty boy, and I'd rather talk about nonsense than anything serious. But
you learn to take responsibility.
Yeah. I mean,
your life, your body, and all your decisions, and not blame this and blame that, and
yeah, and you know, it taught me so much about how I was, about my relationships, about everything. And I think that's at the root of it as well. You know, the whole thing of repressed emotions and false beliefs and all of that kind of thing. I had to attack it on all levels. Some people get really lucky. They just, I cut gluten out, that's fine, and now arthritis is gone. I took some CBD oil. I added boron, and it all went away. Well, for most people, it doesn't. No. And finally, a pattern started to emerge that all of these ridiculous interventions I was doing, this pill and this powder and this herb and this Ayurvedic medicine, it all cost a fortune, and enemas and God knows what. I mean, who in our ancestry really ever really stuck tubes up their arse and sat in the bathroom for hours?
I know. I do love a coffee enema for certain conditions as a therapy. I'm going to tell you, as a clinician, if you have a gallstone attack, wow, that will just give you such relief. But yes, you're right. You know what I love about your story and my story, what we preach all the time, is looking to nature. And so that's what you just basically said. You're like, hang on, let's go back into nature and look at how a human is designed. And I make extreme things. I'm like, well, unless that injection came out of my mother's vagina, I'm pretty sure I don't need it. You know, like, I made everything my son needed to come into this earth, and I made everything he needed after he was alive for years. So I didn't need any food, you know, created in a manufacturing plant and put in dangerous containers and chemicals added to it and shipped and flown and destroying the environment, because my body just made it 100%.
That's disgraceful. Are you telling me that he wasn't vegan for the first few years?
Can you believe babies are carnivore ketogenic babies like humans? Like they eat this highly ketogenic diet. People are, when I explain that finally, they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's how the human brain has to develop. And I don't know if we should go down that rabbit. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, no,
saying that, but like, I love that. I wanted to point it out to the listeners. Like, he's talking about, stop looking to ridiculous textbooks or other things and things that have been made up, and just look, if you look at nature a little bit, stop thinking, you know, you need somebody, well, how do I eat? I don't understand. Like, again, I love, you know, humans are the only animal on earth that think they need 14 books to figure out how to eat. And you came, my son, your children came out of your wife knowing how to eat. As soon as they just went to the breast, oh, okay. It's instinctual in us to know what to do, you know? And I love that you said that. So sorry to interrupt.
No, it's everything I started to notice that was actually working was something that harked back to nature or ancestry. And this is what I loved about Jack.
Yeah.
Because however deep he got with the science, he always says the lion and the hippo don't need to know this. They know what to do, you know, and neither does anyone else.
So do we. When we were connected to the earth,
yeah,
we did too. We have that same thing. If you look at primal cultures, they're good to go. And they understood what to eat, and they did understand when to use plants as medicine and to intervene. And it wasn't on a daily basis, you know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. With Jack's work, it taught me that really we need all the science, because people are so brainwashed by what they think is science, yeah, that they read on the front of a newspaper or see on the television, that you've got to break through so many layers. I had to. I wanted to break through the layers, but a load of people don't want to, because they're totally convinced of all this ridiculous stuff like the lipid hypothesis and the World Health Organization coming out with meat causes cancer. And when you trace it all back, it's all down to some sort of lunacy from some religion or spirituality or something that is just another man-made concept. You know, no animals.
Huge thing. And yeah, I love that you talk about that, because let me say a couple points. So I'm going to interrupt kind of and say, you know, it's not about a sales pitch, you guys, but we both offer things that are trying to help people. And you have now, I want to say unleashed, because it's called, you know, you have a podcast, right? It's like a monthly membership, correct?
Oh yes, this is with Dr. Jeremy Ayers and Graham Norbury and Ben Hunt. It's one of those, yeah, when you put a band together and it really works, it feels like that. They're just amazing.
This group of guys, and it's all a lot. They all talk like him. I've watched, you know, watched some lectures, and I'm like, I got to say it as an American, it's a little bit, sometimes I'm like, what did they just say? Pause. I'm not sure if I understood what that word meant. I'm like, I need subtitles because you guys get going. And so it seems like part of your mission is similar to mine, where you're trying to break up what you just said, this misinformation, dogma, and it's even beyond myths, which is why I love that, you know, Dr. Ken Berry, who you know as well, has come out and said, you know, lies. The name of his book is called The Lies My Doctor Told Me, when he realized he was straight up, flat out lied to in his medical school education and continual big pharmaceutical rep education that goes on in their offices, because that's the majority of the way they actually get educated. And I don't think people really know that or want to understand that. So I'm like, if your physician's primary educational source is a company that's creating and selling and marketing multi-billion-dollar drugs, I mean, what do you think the outcome is going to be whenever you go to the physician? It's a fascinating concept. And you know, to say like Ken Berry is a physician, Paul Saladino is a physician, Jack Kruse is a physician. I am not a physician. I'm a holistic doctor. Functional medicine have always been. So I wasn't taught in school the way they were taught. Again, we have our own dogma, whatever we're taught, but it's not based on FDA, World Health Organization. You know, we don't like those organizations in general. I haven't liked them for 20 something years. That's why, you know, I chose this path. But that's your program, you have free Facebook groups, which I'm in, amazing one. And then you have this, and that's to me, the bigger message you're trying to do is right there. It's like, people, do you know where the food recommendations came from? Do you know why they tell you to eat this? And you trace the story back to kind of, you know, let people know the truth, because they really think it's based on like health data or science of some sort. You would think that would be the logical, well, of course, you know, the American Diabetic Association is making suggestions of, you know, your Diabetic Association, the Australian Diabetic, based on actual improving results and trials and clinical outcomes of helping people get better. You would think, but we know, you know better, and you're teaching people better. But it is a hard thing to unlock sometimes.
It's well, you know, when I have somebody come to me for a consult or whatever, and they're like a McDonald's eater or something, I think, thank God for that. It's so much easier, because you can tell them to, oh, you can just eat steak with a load of fat, and they go, great, that's cool. But if you have somebody who's really been down the plant-based thing, and this is the dogma that runs through everything. This is the thing why I end up talking about diet so much. It's I'd sort of rather not. I like it when somebody comes to me who's a carnivore and says, I'm still having some trouble, and maybe I've got this emotional issue or something. And it's so great to be able to see the whole.
It's so great. Food is so boring, and I
okay. Well, it's you know,
you have to do it because it's in everybody's face all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I am very much deeply in once I get them settled, then I have to blow their mind into, this isn't actually the solution. The food is not that important. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then when you really get into, for me, I get into all the electromagnetic type of stuff and really explain who they are on a field level, you know, going into the mitochondria, going into the cell, which then explains them in a different quantum, energetic, esoteric, being of light way. So I really try to merge that deeper layer root cause science with the spiritual aspect, and which is exactly what you do, which is why I'm like, oh my God, I love Phil. Like, you know, might be my spirit, my British white man spirit animal.
maybe. Yeah, it's lovely to be able to look at the whole side of things, because you can, you know, if you, as you probably know, you just let somebody talk for half an hour and you get a much better idea. People can sort of send you a little message and they say, oh, am I eating too much pork and not enough beef or something? And then you listen to them for half an hour and you find out that it's actually this horrendous relationship they've got with their mother or something. It's nothing to do with that. But these are all just little ancestral disconnects. Anything that causes stress on the mitochondria and leads to mitochondrial dysfunction can come from any area of our life, from the spiritual to the really gross. And it's all the same, as far as I see. It's all part of exactly the same process. And this is why it's so weird, I suppose, getting in arguments with vegans, because they're seeing it just from the food side and the animal cruelty side. And there's so many more aspects, well, to both of those anyway, as you and I know, where it's not all as it seems. So when I get somebody who's vegan, like you were mentioning, I think before we were recording, but to get somebody, it's breaking through all the conditioning. If you have somebody who has really educated themselves and understands, and they're open all the time to being wrong, I think that's the important thing. That's why I love the boys in the Human Unleashed that I'm part of now, because they're always willing to be wrong. It's delightful to be wrong, because you're going to find out something better.
It makes you a learner. It's being called the learner state. I can't help anybody unless we can shift them, redirect their brain to be open to being a learner, which means I got to put the ego on relax, because it's fighting tooth and nail. You know, like, it doesn't want to be wrong. It's doing everything it can to never be told that, because it feels like it's going to die. Right. And so, failing, being wrong, learning, going, oh yeah, that's learning.
Yeah, because I've
That's
sort of
awesome
become,
that you have that, like that wonderful support tribe of you guys.
oh, they're great. They're great. And I think that I've been wrong so many times and learned all my best things from being wrong. My attitude, I've been come to be known as the sort of English carnivore guy, but really that's so weird to me, because I'm actually always looking for what might be wrong with carnivory. You know,
Yeah.
I'm seeing little things here and there, little thiamine things or vitamin C in some people, although most people are fine without it. And no, you won't get scurvy in 2 months, but there might be some issues down the line if somebody's maybe needs a bit more. Very interesting things I'm learning from my friend Elliot Overton, you know, who's fantastic in England. He's just, we just
I
had him.
know some of the same people because that's in a different world. And for me in the carnivore community, you know, I specialize in brain health, particularly emotional and mental health, a lot of psychiatric stuff, autism, learning disorders, all the way to anxiety, depression, PTSD, suicidal behaviors. This has been the cornerstone of my practice, bipolar, and even personality disorders and dissociation. So the whole, like these people need support. Like I can't rip away all their supplements. I might take them down to 5, but there's a very different damage and injury that might happen with somebody with a traumatic brain injury, you know, from war or something, or had a tumor and they have parts of their brain are gone. And, you know, like there's certain issues that go on where I'm like, they actually are going to need, I don't even care on carnivore, like whatever that different biochemical situation we got going on now. I'll tell you right now, like a meth addict, they're not the same after you can get them off. They're never going to be the same. So we do have to keep them on something. So I am very much trying to make sure I convince any of my patients and students, please do not fall down dogma. Please do not think you have to be, you know, it's all about saying, I haven't had any supplement in 2 years or whatever. And then, but you're noticing yourself going into anxiety and depression, or you're noticing yourself getting sick all the time. That's not the goal with this. It's to be your best self and to be healthy. And if somebody all the way to an extreme, like a Michaela Peterson, you know, has for her body, and then what her severe juvenile issues were, if it's water and beef, that's all she can eat with salt, and she needs 0 supplements or she needs 2 supplements, I am not here to judge, and nobody needs to judge, because all she has to answer to is to herself, her husband, her children, you know, like her spirituals and her, you know, her body, that her vessel. So I hear you, because I'm like, don't you guys think, like, I get it. Like, we might need to give you some vitamin C. We might need to give you some L-theanine and GABA. I deal with these women coming off withdrawal, their carb addictions, and I give them little supplement cocktails to help with their anxiety, because they're a compulsive eater, or they're a carb addict because they're not dealing with their emotional healing like you're talking about. Well, I can't come out the gate with that, Phil. I can't come out in the first 2 weeks and talk about their sexual abuse. So I have to transition, and I got to build some time. And it might be 3 months, 6 months before I can really hit what that is. And if I've got to use some L-theanine and some magnesium and some GABA to help this woman titrate off of her carb addiction and stay stable, so be it. And if people want to judge me in the community for it, or her, you know, you can go to hell, because I have a patient that needs to get better, right? So I hear you. I watch it too, like, how much nose to tail is, how, you know, like, and Paul's right, Saladino, like, people were going to be eating everything, and yet I could care less that, oh God, Charlene, like that, you know, Charlene Anderson is, what is it, 20 years now? How long has she just been eating steak, right? And her Lyme is gone. God bless, stay happy, stay healthy. And if that's what her body can do, so be it. But do not beat yourself up, judge yourself, think you're a failure if you have to do something a little bit different. That
And I mean,
work for you. We might have to add in, you know, liver and bone meal and other stuff, right?
Yeah, well, I see this, you know, people who come into something, they'd love to make it into a cult. And that's happening a little bit in the carnivore movement, but not so much, because there isn't this religious fervor about it.
Calm and stable. I mean,
oh, definitely,
the
yes.
brain is like, whatever. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You
So,
really are like, I don't know, is it really that big of it's kind of like we all are smoking weed, but we're not. You know, it's like a low level weed. I don't give a shit. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
You know what I mean?
It just, I
Like the
mean,
perfect
all I
example was Paul on the Doctors. You know, like that
oh, that was
whole.
awful, wasn't it?
But did you see him?
Chilled out.
He's
Yeah.
like, what are they doing? He's like, inside his mind, he's like, you guys sound like lunatics. You're irrational and hyper reactive. And can somebody get that? I mean, they looked so unstable. I really think they actually shot themselves in the foot with that. I don't think it took being a keto or a carnivore to go, what the hell's the matter with them? Everybody was like, why is she screaming at him? You know?
Did you hear what happened afterwards? You know, the dietitian that was sitting next to
Yes, that he had to call security on her twice.
twice.
And that's, here's the reality. That's just a symptom of a starved brain that's in a constant fight or flight limbic system overtaking because that brain is starving. And I tell everybody, like, why would you think you can be calm if your brain thinks you're always in a famine? That's what goes on. I think that's part of why the initial, everybody's anxiety goes down. Everybody's like, oh my God. It's because we've taken, this part of the brain, the limbic system, here's your cortex, right, that keeps everything calm. You're always like, well, if your brain thinks it's in a famine or war, that's life or death. It can't have rational cortical impulse control. It can't have emotional control. You start throwing in all that fat and protein and B vitamins and everything else you're deficient in, the brain just goes like nature. Let's go back and talk about human beings. Like, nobody's sticking an enema up their butt. Well, if you had a lot of fatty meat, that meant times are good. Men are strong. They're protecting us. They're getting a shit ton of meat. I can just sit around, eat, have babies. There's no war. Like, that's a signal to the body of, we are safe, there's abundance, there's no one threatening us, there's food, like, we're good. Like, it's a time to relax, don't be on hyper alert, and get pregnant, because we can have babies, right? And when the food disappears, that's a huge signal of times are not good. So we're gonna have to slow down metabolism, retain fat, don't get pregnant, right? And these are the things I think everyone's dealing with, being fat and can't get pregnant. I mean, there's more infertility clinics. It's
Yeah, and then it also brings in aggression, doesn't it? In hunting mode, let's go and kill a woolly mammoth, or let's go and
you have to be aggressive, right?
let's go and attack a carnivore on his YouTube channel or something, which the vegans do. So I believe that there is that kind of aggression. You see so much, don't you, when that sort of plant-based starved brain, it comes onto some good fatty meat and some fish and whatever, and suddenly they're all chilled out. The emotions balance out.
It happened to me. I remember it. And you actually think also, kind of that vegan world, the world is a dark, miserable place, and humans are horrible, despicable, evil, kind of murderer. Yeah, because you aren't evolved enough, you're a murderer. I was that person. I look at myself now and I'm like, my poor mother, I am so sorry. That woman made tofurkey for me every Thanksgiving. God bless her soul. When I was living in that world and that brain, humans were not good people to me. It was like, mean people suck. I'd rather be with my dog, all that kind of stuff. Instead, now I see people as like these radiant, amazing beings of light, sacred. I am so much more spiritually connected. I understand. I get it from the tribal cultures of what? That buffalo transmutes their life force. They took grass and sunlight and my garbage air, carbon dioxide, and turned it into their flesh. So I could transmute that sunlight and their spirit into me. And so I can live and be strong and think and have children. That's a miracle of, the circle of life that goes beyond. I think it's very spiritually connected. And when you study Native American tribes, Aboriginal tribes, ain't a damn vegetarian tribe on earth. And we all want to talk about their spiritual connection and their rituals. And we want to quote what they said. And I'm like, you know, he said that or wrote that, or everyone's talking about that while he was smoking a pipe, eating a bunch of buffalo, right? Or mammoth, right? Like, we consider these some, you know, the most spiritual cultures around, you know, from ancient times. And they were all doing it based on a, you know,
well, because of what I got caught up in, the whole sort of spiritual brainwashing about food. I was never really an animal rights activist at all. I never had a go at people about that, but it was always like, you're never going to get enlightened if you eat meat and all that crap. And then you start to realize how disrespectful that is, as you said, to every culture, apart from the whole Hindu thing and a couple of others, you know, like the lunatic ideas that came through the Seventh-day Adventists with the anti-masturbation cornflakes and stuff, and Harvey Kellogg and all of that.
I did not know that. Tell them what that is real fast. I've posted about it.
It's a fascinating story. I like to tell vegetarians in the West where their ideas came from. Basically, there was a young girl called Ellen G. White, and it was like 1860s or something, and she had these visions as a teenager that one shouldn't have any meat in the diet because it causes impure thoughts. So we have to eat a Garden of Eden diet of all plants. And she got really into this and started to influence other people and started to write books and pamphlets. And the family took on a young boy, and he became her typesetter. And he went on to get brainwashed himself, you know, sorting out.
He's sitting there really writing her book.
So all the books, and later on he became he started up all these sanatoriums where they did all these very bizarre practices and put them all on these horrible grains, and started up a load of cereal companies around the area. And this was Harvey Kellogg. And so you see, this is where the sunshine breakfast came from, the cornflakes that are intended to stop you having any sexual thoughts or touching yourself inappropriately.
It was all designed to lower libido, sexual drive,
mess about the hormones.
People wouldn't masturbate, wouldn't have sex, would stay pure and chaste, because that's what should be driving our healthcare policies.
Yeah, exactly. And now it has.
And that literally is where it comes from.
Yeah, and he was a nutter. I mean, he never consummated his marriage. He was into circumcision of both sexes, and you
know that.
Yeah. You look at his history, and he's completely barking mad.
I'm from Michigan, where Battle Creek, that's a huge Kellogg. You know, like, it's huge where I'm from.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
For all the college stuff, like I know they gave endowments to my college. It's like you get, and like they must be everything because their names everywhere.
Well, now they're all over the World Health Organization, the American Dietetics Association, aren't they?
They run it, the Seventh-day Adventists. So they're a vegetarian group. The majority of those physicians are in this religion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why, but people don't know that. In America, people would come unglued. You can only imagine if suddenly our dietary board and the World Health Organization board, all of the 70% were Muslim. Like, we would come unglued here, right? Because then you would have dietary choices based upon being a Muslim. There would be no pork, right? You know, you would have a massive change in all of the recommendations, but people don't know that this is a
just slides in, doesn't
religious group that's actually making, not science, not studies, not food nutritionists and researchers. That's not what is doing it. And so we've all been bamboozled. And now,
but if you look deeper, you know, like when the World Health Organization came out with this meat causes cancer and whatever, and now you listen to some of the people, particularly David Klurfeld, who's very outspoken now, who was on the committee himself, and he wasn't one of these vegans or Seventh-day Adventists. And he says what nonsense it is, how it was pushed through on ridiculous epidemiology and religious dogma. And when you actually see where it came from, some vegetarians, the vegans are a bit more difficult, but some vegetarians I've told about this, they go, wow, I see what you mean. Is this really where it came from in the West? To say, yeah, pretty much largely, this is where the whole plant-based thing came from, that you should eat whole grains and eat cereals, and they were healthy, and they're just the most revolting things to eat. I got in this mess from eating 3 bowls of crunchy nut cornflakes in the morning, and a pizza for lunch and all of that kind of thing.
Me too. Me too. And that was the science and the truth that helped break me. I finally had to go. I saw the disconnect, one, that I was lied to. And then I was doing it for very spiritual reasons as well. Very, very. And it was on a trip in Brazil. I was on a mission trip with 20 other doctors. And I was a student at the time. And when you're going these mission trips and you're going to these little out pocket, we're seeing hundreds of thousands of people a day, taking care of them for 12 hours, and you just never, you would get lunch. And so we'd go to someone's house, someone from like the church would volunteer to feed us. And they were very poor. I mean, third world country, very different levels of what Americans call poor. And we were all concerned. I was with a group of 4 in my pack of doctors. And we were like, we didn't really know what to do about the food. And this one doc, there was 2 men and 2 women. And she said, so, because they didn't understand our English. And she goes, am I the only because who else is vegetarian here? Right. Because all meat, they were feeding us mostly. And I was like, yeah, we had one guy that wasn't. And then the other guy who was, he goes, well, I'm not today. And I remember going into the bathroom to wash my hands and like praying and crying. And it was like God spoke to me in a moment and just said, Stephanie, you don't judge the lion for killing and eating the gazelle. It is the natural way. Like, you are no different. And I was able to override my crap, like all my judgments, to be like, not eating their food, that love and attention and generosity would be such a massive insult. And I could never override, never take that away. So who gives a shit about my feelings right now in this moment? And I got to tell you, we were in Brazil, I think 10 days or something. So I was a vegan, everybody knew it. I ate so much meat. I felt so amazing. It was crazy. I was a student. I was the only student, 20 doctors, licensed doctors, and I was a student allowed to come in there because I was dating a doctor. So they kind of said, okay, we let her come. And I was crushing it over all these other people who tried to stay vegetarian. And they would say, well, how you feeling? We heard you had to eat meat. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Like, does your stomach hurt? I'm like, nope. I'm like, aren't you tired? I'm like, no, I think I'll actually have a beer. I feel fucking awesome. And I didn't want to make it be the connection. And I had to go to another one in Costa Rica and do the same thing. And I'm like, every time I go on these things, I feel it can't be the food though. It can't be the food. It can't be the food. It must be because I'm in my spiritual space and I'm service and I'm doing right. And then later on, I'm like, it was totally the food, because I wasn't eating gluten, which I ate a crap ton of as a vegetarian. I wasn't eating soy, which I ate a crap ton of. And I was nourishing my body with all that meat. But it was a spiritual moment, spiritual journey for me. Crying in the bathroom. And I had to think of the lion. And if you had told me 15 years ago when that happened, or whatever, 20 years ago, I think the first time I ate it, and I would go back, I didn't stop being a vegetarian. It was like 10 years later. That I'd be a carnivore, and I would be I lead carnivore groups, and I'm taking a carnivore on safari to Africa, and lions are all a part of my branding and my images. I think I was being told a message a very long time ago, baby girl, you are a fucking lion, and start acting like it, And anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, a lot of this thing has come when I see vegetarians and they think I have to eat meat, and they'll add a little bit of fish and a little bit of chicken to their rice and dal or whatever, and wholemeal bread, and it really does very little good. I think after so many years of plant abuse, you see, I'm not militant at all. I think Jack's right, really, that it's all to do with latitude. It's all to do with deuterium depletion, seasonal availability. And if we all ate seasonally and locally with no processed foods and absolutely no grains, and we were out in the sun all the time, we'd be fine. You wouldn't need to.
Fine. Yep.
Yeah.
Get the Wi-Fi out of your house. Some people may have to deal with a lot of electromagnetics. Like, you had a really, really serious autoimmune disorder. Somebody like a Michaela Peterson, who's very big in the carnivore. Again, juvenile arthritis. I think she was rheumatoid, but it might have been rheumatoid and psoriatic. that's really a big foundational problem, that those people may have to be more sensitive. Like Jack Kruse talks about, he was super huge and obese and he was old, right? And knee blew out and all this stuff. Well, and because he was still doing brain surgery all the time at 4 a.m. under horribly harsh lights, ruining his circadian biology constantly, you're going to have to you're going to have to do more than somebody who's living in some natural rhythms. So the fact that you might have to do more N=1 experiments and do more ice packing and light extremes and hardwiring your home or something because of your confined. And other people just might have had a stronger base than you, and they can kind of cheat a little bit more than, my son can eat a whole lot more carbs than I can. He's 14. His body doesn't respond the same. He has his deuterium depletion, his ability to look totally different than me at 47. You know what I mean? And after I've gone through some injuries and surgeries and illnesses, right? So, I don't like when people try to compare this. So I love it. I agree completely. And some people may have to do a little bit more extreme protection and change of their environment than other people. But, like it's really hard to take somebody from Somalia and move them to Detroit, Michigan, or to the UK and have them be their optimized self, because the sunlight situation for them is downright.
Well, my partner's from Tanzania. She's just.
And how does she do?
Totally black. Well, Jack always said, "Have you still got that black wife of yours in the north of England?" She's what did he used to call that? A cactus in the tundra.
Yeah.
Get her out of there. Yeah. And he was right. And shortly after, they put up a 4G mast out the back of the house, and she was vegetarian for 20 years. And so they put this 4G mast up, and soon after that, last winter, she ended up with Graves' disease, and she started getting really skinny, and her eyes started doing the characteristic bulging out. And I mean, when a black woman's ass disappears, there's a problem, because it just never disappears. And she was really, really skinny, and she's just naturally very muscular. Yeah. But we, with the help of Zofia Clements, a paleomediciner in Hungary, and all the things that we knew and all the wonderful people I know all chipped in, and she's doing fantastically, and everything's back and the body's rebuilt itself. And
did you travel down, or did you get a lot of different artificial light therapies to try and help? Like, what did you do to?
No, I just threw her out in the sun whenever I could, like throw her out and lock the back door. Like, no, not really, but just to remind her all the time that they get out. You need a load more than me with my stupid skin. I mean, I
fly as much as I can. I mean, traveling has its wear and tear on my body and my system and the EMFs and what it does, but I have to go down to equatorial places quite a bit. And I notice because I live in Atlanta, and that's still kind of a northern latitude. So I still don't have, I have vitamin D deficient, no UV sunlight here right now in the winter. It's tough. And I use a lot of near infrared light bulbs on me just every day. And I was just in Florida, so I had my hit for a few days. It makes a massive difference. So
I think there's other things to this, like for staying healthy in England. It makes a huge difference just feeling the seasons, whatever the season is.
Yeah.
Like in the winter, as you can see now, I can see the lights failing. If the light fails, I'm not going to turn a light on. I don't have a red bulb set up at the moment, but some of the recordings and interviews I do and whatever, I'm just bathed in completely red light, because we don't use anything else at night here, or we use candles. Yeah. Even the TV has a screen over it. All the computers have iris on and whatever, and they're hardwired in. So, and then early in the morning, first thing, bare feet, and look at the sun or wherever it's coming up, and get that light information in. And take your top off, at least get the cold in there. And so winter.
You are doing. That's a lot of environmental light modification.
Yeah, the winter is a lot different. But I know that my missus, that Detta, I know that she needs more sun, and I want to figure that out as soon as we can. We're sort of the properties that we gathered on mortgages while I was really sick, and put the deposits down, and it's now time to flog them all, to sell them all, and then perhaps get some money to get out of this area, because I do believe, Jack, she's a cactus in the tundra here, and my kids too, obviously they're mixed race.
Yeah,
and
I'm trying to get further south.
Yeah, I mean, for me it's easy, but it was funny because when I was vegetarian and vegan, particularly for the last 10 years. from 2000 up to 2010. I started to notice it on a 6 month trip I did to India in 1999, 2000. And I was just getting so heat intolerant. When I was a kid, I used to go beautifully brown really quickly, and I'd stay there. I didn't have any sun cream or anything. And we'd go to Jordan and we'd go all over the Mediterranean. I was absolutely fine. But then as I depleted probably all the D and the saturated fat and the collagen and all of these things, then I would burn really quickly, and I'd just stay red the whole summer. And I've still got an aspect of that. I'd love to get back to where I was as a kid. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fix it, but it's totally different now. When the sun comes out, I just want to run out into it. Whereas before I did all this whole reset thing, I was getting to the stage where even if it was 70 degrees, I'd be like this on my way from the house to the car, like a vampire. You know, I didn't even want a moment of it. It felt horrible on my skin because it just couldn't deal with it, because I'd wrecked my system so much. And I see this a lot with people going carnivore, that their sun tolerance goes up massively. Mm-hmm. You know, that they can suddenly take far more sun.
Yeah, we should be able to tolerate all the seasons and all the weather. You guys, we used to run around naked, you know, pretty much for, exactly. You know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, million, but you could even say 2 million, but let's say at least 40,000 years ago, we weren't sitting around in a lot of clothes in the sun and the weather and temperature. I love the videos of, you know, kids in Norway and Sweden, when you watch them doing snow baths. They're like, you know, 4 and 5 years old. Have you seen those? Or they all kindergarten, they go, okay. And everybody goes outside in their underwear. Teachers are in their bikinis and they're doing snow baths, and they go in and they get inside the sauna and drink warm tea together. Like, that's what school is like over there. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, over here, we're having like shooting lockdowns for 5-year-olds, and there's never outside, and they're never in the snow. And everybody says you're going to get sick. And it's like, what is the matter? And I'll send them those videos. I'm like, look at these children. They're building their immune system because they're building their electromagnetic charge. They're repelling the heat. They're not even cold. They're not even cold, you guys. If you're getting cold, you don't have charge, you know, and that's the kind of story we're telling people, but in a way at first that they can, you know, like.
Yeah, and then you show them those videos, and some people go, oh, look at that, that's child abuse. You know, it's, I've seen that.
I've never heard
that. I've heard it a couple of times, and then you think, well, their kids are being sent to school and they're being fed Haribo and all that shit all the time, and they just get given cakes, and then they're in the Wi-Fi and they're under the strip lights all day.
And they're 70 pounds overweight at 7 years old, and they're diabetic. That's not child abuse?
I know. There's my son, my youngest son, Peter. He's 4, and there's one of the girls in his class is already growing breasts, and you're like, at that age, I mean, okay, you can see it coming in at like 8 years old and 9 years old.
Hormonal endocrine.
Yeah, which is it's a disaster. It's a disaster.
And that's a whole other talk we could probably have, because it could be very controversial at some of the stuff I may say about it. But the normalization of bizarre hormone issues in children, and that we're starting to act like we're just going to accept that they're completely being distorted and perverted at a real hormonal level at 4, 5, 6, 7 is not okay. I don't know why people are not waking up to going, you know, that's not normal, right? That's not a, people are trying to turn a real physiological scare thing that we should be aware of into some kind of social emotional thing. And I'm like, it's a real biology problem, and they're not getting it. And I think it's being maybe done on purpose to ignore this from what we're, you know.
Well, you know, I mean, you'd have to listen to the boys in the Graham Norbury and Jeremy, Dr. Jeremy, about all the real conspiracy stuff and how deep it goes.
I do. I need to know what episode. If you've got an episode, I want to know, you know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I have to know about it. So tell them a little bit. Let me let you get, you know, you got a busy day, and we're going to do more stuff. I really want to have another time where I just talk to you about deuterium, because you know more about it than I do. I'm baby steps into it. I know enough to teach a little bit of it to my master's groups. I have a master's makeover for women that I do. They're my second level people, and I cover a lot of science, and I try to teach them actually. So that stuff was, now we're never going to talk about food again for the next 90 days. We're going to talk about what really matters, mostly mitochondria, but everything that goes into that. So I have to talk about deuterium, and I resisted it. You gave me the courage to finally do some deuterium lectures, and I appreciate it. Because it's one of my weaker links, but I finally said, I don't have to be perfect before I can teach them something that will be helpful for them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So more. So I do want to have talk to you.
No, listen, I tell you what. I mean, I'm happy to dip into it, but seriously, if you want to do an episode on deuterium, please get my friend Graham Norbury, and he is a genius. I mean, I thought that I knew about it, right? And we were at the we do this carnival.
Well, I won't want him to blow minds in such a way. Like I have to remember.
No, he won't. This is the amazing thing.
A bunch of 50-year-old women. Okay.
No, we do this carnivore retreat. Every year we do.
Tell me about. So you got a Spain.
Yeah, but on last year. Right, Graham did one talk on light and one talk on deuterium, and I thought, well, I have other things to do because I know what he's going to say with this, and then I just caught a few words, and I thought I've just got to stay. It's in through that talk is in there. You can see it, but he's just become the great demystifier. We just stood there, and there was people who were carnivore, people who'd followed Jack Kruse for years. Everybody was just saying, now we understand what was going on.
So this is what I have to do.
On that subject, I tell you, I'm real happy to come back and talk about a million different things. But you pick deuterium.
I'm going to get Graham. You make him do it with me. So I'm going to get Graham. This is what I have to do. So do you still have the raffle tickets?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to get a raffle ticket for your Spain carnivore. It's really a conference. Like I'm running a safari retreat. I'm running a healing retreat. Yours is like Sean Baker's going to be there. You have a bunch of lecturers. Like it's a straight up conference in kind of a retreat environment.
Well, what's so cool about it is that like last year we had Sophia Clements, we had Paul Mabry, and everybody gets to know everybody because there's only about maximum 50 you can get into this place. Yeah. And it's so intimate. So you're hanging out with these people around the pool and in the bar in the evening. The place is beautiful. And so it's lovely. I really want to be able to get to your African thing as well.
Yeah, we're going to see. I'm going to try to get to yours. So tell them the dates of this thing and where to go. And when we're just done, send it to me and I'll get everything in there because it looks so cool. It was last year. And I was like, oh my God. But now if you get a raffle ticket or if you do, like you can buy even just last year's lectures and stuff. So now that, and well,
what we're doing, we decided last year we did a raffle. And so we thought, okay, this year we'll do a raffle as well. But this year you get, it's $29 for a raffle ticket. The rooms are like over $2,000. It's an amazing place. We're not making any money out of it. We're having so many expenses to get this amazing place. So it is a very exclusive thing. But for $29, you can win that room. But everybody, there's 100 tickets going. For everybody who enters, then they get a month's free membership of the Human Unleashed, which is $29 a month. They also get access to the talks from last year and access to the talks from this year when they come out. So, which is $29 anyway. So you get 3 times $29 for your month. I just want so many people to have access to this stuff, but we've put it, the Human Unleashed stuff, I think we put it behind a paywall because we talk about loads in public. We put loads of free stuff out there, but there are certain things that you can kind of get in trouble for and get shut down for.
No, I agree. I have a monthly memberships for that reason. Sure. I took them off of Facebook and off of some of the social media because there's a lot of policing and there's a lot of you can get in trouble with. And so when you're, and Phil, you're creating content. You guys are putting time and energy in it. You deserve to make money from it. So I'm going to clear that up for you right now. Don't ever.
Oh, but haven't we all put out so much info for years? I'm fine with making money out of it.
Free and free.
Info for years.
It really is better when we have these off-site paid memberships because I love the word. We can be unleashed. I am very different in my private groups than I am on my public. Hey, that kind of thing. Yeah. What gets said over there? I'm no holds barred. I can't, there's many subjects I will not talk about publicly for fear of retribution, like in a number of ways. Like I'm not doing it. Right.
Yeah, there's quite a few areas.
Yeah, that we just know I'm good. I'm not actually going to play that game right now. I'm willing to put a bullseye on my face right now. So I'm going to do that, but I do think it's important to talk about. And if someone asks me a question, I will answer it truthfully, right? But in the private settings, you definitely have more freedom.
Well, this is why Ken Berry's so brave, you know, and I'm however chilled he is about it, I'm still suspicious that his practice and his house burned down.
Give me
I
a
don't
break.
know.
They both within 6 months were torched. I
Yeah,
mean, unless there's some weird cousin with a fire issue coming after him, that no one's
exactly.
caught yet. Come on. And Paul Wolfson, are you familiar with him? The
No.
paleocardiologist. So he's a physician here, a cardiologist, and his whole brand is the paleocardiologist. And he's very, he has said some, on CNN, and it like, did he just say that? And got attacked and protesters, and he's shutting his practice down at times. And he and his wife, he's married to a chiropractor, so she has shifted his whole thinking. And he leads a strong charge, same way where I go, oh, I hope nobody hurts them. I mean, it makes me very nervous. I'm like, I'm not.
There's a few around like that.
Yeah.
I'm in the UK. Asim Malhotra. I'm surprised he's getting away with what he's saying. He's having a real go at the whole dietary thing, and he's going on breakfast TV and saying it was all rubbish, and there's a lot of people who are out there doing it now. I think.
It's starting, Tim Noakes and that whole thing, which I'm hoping I get to meet him when I go to South Africa, but I'm working on interviewing him when I'm over there. So tell them where to go to find out about everything. Do you have one location, one website?
Well, my website is pureactivity.net or philescott.com. We'll get to it. But I think the thing I'm the most proud of now is this Human Unleashed thing, because it's so much fun with the boys. You get four of us. You don't just get me. I mean, I love to do all these consultations for people with autoimmunity and understanding it from the inside out and how it feels. I get so much of an insight into how people can tweak things and the mistakes they've made, because the only reason I've learned things is being the biggest fucking idiot of anybody, So I've done everything wrong.
You've done it all.
So I can see when people have done it wrong. But what I love is I've got that perspective from sort of inside, and then Graham has got all the whole Jack Kruse and science thing of it, very analytical mind. Jeremy Ayres is like you, a functional practitioner who's been helping people for so long with all the fantastic wisdom you guys have. And he's very eloquent too. And then Ben Hunt, who puts it all together, and he's also very knowledgeable with all the sustainable farming and stuff like that, and great at directing all the conversations and whatever. So that's the thing I'm really proud of and excited at the moment, which is at thehumanunleashed.com. And you can find out about the conference there and everything. And people,
thehumanunleashed.com. That's what we're going to let everybody know about.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun, that one. Having fun.
That's what I wanted to talk about. That's when
Stephanie, you're coming on soon to talk about some stuff that you can't talk about because you're coming on for our members.
What am I going to talk about on there, Phil? I mean,
you have a lot to talk about, I tell you.
You guys deal with, I've only listened to a few of the things. How often do you release a podcast weekly? Or
well, at the moment we're doing 2 recordings a week. I think there's over 60 hours
a week.
There's over 60 hours of stuff at the moment, but we also do a Q&A every 2 weeks, and we have like expert people on we've had some fantastic chats with people, and we'll have one with you too.
That is chock full of guys. You can't really, $29 a month. That's insane, honestly.
It's all aspects. It's money. It's health. It's the whole system and light and just spirituality.
Oh, no, trust me,
everything.
Yeah. And,
all the ways we've been fooled, all the crap we've been told.
Yeah. So I'm going to say it gently, like you and I would be kind of those conspiracy theory people a little bit.
Yeah, but
I'm comfortable with that. I don't see it as a bad thing. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I used to, until you realize how most of these conspiracies are not theories anymore.
Right. I'm like, The Matrix is a documentary, not a film, right? What I mean? Oh, didn't know.
Well, the red pill, that's the book we're doing. That's where it came from. That's where the inspiration came from.
Exactly. And I think people are waking up. And I will call my students. I'm like, they call them copper top for a reason. I'm like, but let's flip it the right way. You are a battery, and let me explain it to you. So if you are that copper top, let's get you recharged. You have to learn how to do this, and you don't know how they're purposely going after draining your charge, so you have no energy to stand up and resist and defend and learn. If I drain your battery and you're at 4% all the time, how are you going to stop me? You know, you can't. But let's get everybody a fighting chance. And I'm a big fan of that. Like, I don't live in fear and conspiracy, like, oh my God, you know, but I live in, oh, come on, you guys. Like, let's like look at it from this perspective. Like, I'm all about follow the money. I'm like, I don't know.
absolutely.
This group of people is making no money by saying this, and they've made $4 billion. Who do you think's more motivated to lie in the situation?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think Graham said something really important. We did a bit of a sort of outrageous one on the coronavirus the other day, because that's quite topical at the moment. And Graham said something really interesting that I thought was cool, that the definition of apocalypse is not the end of the world. The definition of apocalypse is a revealing. And that's what it comes from the Greek. And I think in the next year or so, we're going to have a load of things revealed to us, and it's going to be really obvious the complete nonsense
cool,
been going on.
That's an amazing reframe.
I know it is, isn't it?
That's
So
really beautiful.
I think it might be apocalyptic for some of the people up the top, for some of the owners of the world.
I agree. I think that's
what it's going to unravel, and you can see a lot of desperate situations, a lot of fears being created, false solutions being given. And that's what's happening all across the board with viruses. Whether this one's real or not, I don't know. But then there's the climate thing, where there's all the fear, and then the weird solutions, like we all have to go plant-based.
Yes.
You know, there's fear and then weird solutions. And when you see the pattern of that through history, wow, it's amazing. And I love that idea about the apocalypse, that there's a reveal.
It's revealing. And then in the Bible, it's called Revelations. I mean, that's really fascinating. Wow. Thank you for that reframe.
There you go.
Landed on that.
I mean,
so the Human Unleashed. Go ahead.
I'd love a time when I don't have to talk about this anymore. Everybody knows what to do, what to eat, you know, and I can just go back to playing drums and going fishing and riding motorbikes and just being a naughty boy again. But you know, you have to talk about it when you know, don't you? You just got to pay it on.
Yes.
It's very rewarding, but
it's very rewarding. That's it feels good. You know, when people have that aha moment right in front of you.
Yeah.
And then they've matured and they don't need you anymore. That's my goal, is to teach and empower and get them to the point they can, you know, be the captain of their own ship.
Absolutely. Well, my website, the byline is developing your intuition so you don't need us anymore.
Yeah.
It's so important, isn't it? I don't want recurring business like Weight Watchers and Slimming World.
I don't either.
Things set up to fail. I want to see people.
I do that. I'm like, I'm trying to fire people, my patients, as much as possible. And sometimes they have a hard time with that. It makes them very sad. And I have to go, but you're better. I go, here's the thing. You can stop by and just say hi. You don't have to be sick to see me. You could just come give me a hug. And they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah, you can send me a card just to tell me how you're doing. And so when I break that, I'm like, you don't have to be sick to see me. And they're like, oh my God, Dr. Rivka. I'm like, yeah, you're better. You're better, aren't you? They go, yeah. I go, then go live life. Go take art classes, have sex. I don't care what you do. Have some damn fun. Go be creative. You go make your message in the world now. Because now that I got you better and your light is shining, I want to go, I want to enjoy whatever you're going to go create. But you couldn't create it when you were laying in the bed sick. You know what I mean? So
see, this is a proper physician. Does everybody notice this? I mean, you imagine you go to your GP and then you say, and then he goes, oh yeah, let's go for a drink tonight or something like, no, you got your 5 minutes, get out of here. You know, eventually they wake up and they do become like this. They realize people need more input, and people.
I'm like, get better and come on retreats with me. You know,
like, but for me,
hang out by a fire and talk and eat together, and you can ask me questions and I'll tell you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But when I was sick, you try and talk to some rheumatologist, and then that's it. Your time's up. Get out of here. You know, they didn't give you any solution anyway. They probably don't want to talk because they're just so miserable.
And of course, they're going to tell you nothing you eat or do is going to make any difference. You're going to have this forever, and you're just getting used to it. That's their message anyway. It's so depressing. Why do you even want to go?
I mean, I just know that nobody. I've told this story quite a few times before, but there was one time where I went in to see my rheumatologist when one of these appointments came up that I didn't need. But I thought, I'm going to go and show him how much better I am because the appointment came up. And I'm jumping up and down in his office going, look at this, you know, how I fixed this. And he's saying, you need to take methotrexate or it's going to go in your heart. It's going to go in your lungs. So I was going, but look at me. I'm the healthiest person in your waiting room. You've got vending machines with chocolate all around and biscuits. You're cooking pies and pasties and toast and stuff in the hospital foyer. First thing you smell when you come in. All of your patients are obese. They're on crutches. They're full of methotrexate and biologics. And you're telling me that I need to take methotrexate? I said, he got so angry with me, he was frothing at the corner of the mouth. And since then, I've actually seen that even by the standards here, he's been in trouble. And now he's had to move up to another practice in Scotland because he was just so arrogant. And when you see that arrogance in medicine, and then people believe it, and a doctor's untouchable, oh, you can't talk to him. I mean, the doctor doesn't get up in the morning and have a poo and have an argument with his wife in the evening. He doesn't do that. He's God. Yeah. You know, we can't approach him. No, they're just people, and they don't know anything about chronic disease. But what's so lovely is when you know people, like all these people I've come to know, like you and other people, Sophia Clements and Paul Mabry, and all these people who've woken up, who then become your friends, and they have respect for you as a researcher. When I see now in the medical, in research, a lot of them are engineers, like Ivor Cummins and a few others, you know, because they have that analytical mind.
They're the best researchers. They're the best.
Yeah. And they're going well ahead.
Doctors, we aren't really trained to do that. I mean, it's going to, you know, it's not really that riveting for us. We need to know enough to move on and take care of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And
but
so
that's
that's
really good at it. I love Ivor. I'm like, just whatever he said. Let me see what he said.
He's funny too, as well, you know. And I mean, I loved it. There was, what was his name? Nadir Ali, this wonderful.
I love him. I love him too.
And at the beginning of one of his talks, the first slide he came up with was, "We need to start listening to our patients. We need to be taught by our patients of what's going on." And that is such a beautiful attitude. If doctors had that, we'd be out of this health crisis in no time.
And you know what kind of attitude that is? That's a feminine perspective, actually.
Yeah.
That's a very feminine way of doing things. And medicine is a mechanistic, masculine way of doing things. And this other way is a very feminine, holistic, holographic way of doing things, which means listening to people, caring, saying, well, clearly what you're saying must be more important, knowing that there's a rightness that your body to what's going on. Every symptom is redirecting you. Your body does nothing by mistake or stupid, and it can heal everything. That's not how this thinks at all. You know what I mean?
Do you know what's so tragic though? It's interesting you mentioned that, but quite often regular doctors, women doctors, become hardened into that male kind of thing. They become more aggressive than some of the males.
Because you have to defend yourself all through medical school and all through residency. You're all,
in fact, they're the most dismissive of anything. Quite often I've gone to them and I've said, look, you know, I've done this and I've done that, and they're even more dismissive than the male doctors. And that is a real shame. And I think you're absolutely right. It's that male dominant sort of energy coming in, and it's wrecking their femininity as well. Yeah. Because I'm sure
we're conditioned to think that is the way you do this. And then what we're seeing, we are men, like you have a very balanced feminine masculine, you know what I mean? And there's a rise and a flipping throughout the entire world around it. And like some of that is the apocalypse and the revelation, and why you're seeing things with this massive, this is not gonna, nope, it's not, you know, it's not gonna work. It's shifting. And that doesn't mean it needs to be a hurtful or domination flips. It's going to be, I think we're moving into where we're going to see harmony finally.
Absolutely.
I think we're going to see the harmonization of these energies the way it was really designed to be. And it was at one point, and we've just had an imbalanced domination structure, but they're going out kicking and screaming, Phil. They don't like it. You know what I mean?
No, they don't.
People
and I think
power don't like it.
I think there's going to be some lumpy times because, you know, the healing journey for the planet or populations or the human body is never straight. People expect to get better like that. They don't. There's
like
ups and downs. It's all sorts. And that's how it is. That's how it is on a big scale too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, Phil, let me let you go on with your day. I appreciate you taking the time all the way from the UK. Everybody go to, is it The Human Unleashed?
Yeah, .com.
thehumanunleashed.com. The name is genius because it's exactly what you're up to doing. It's really what I'm up to doing. You have thehumanunleashed.com. I run the brainandbodyrevolution.org. So they're two very harmonious things. I would say you're not really focused on men per se, even though we got 4 men up there. Because I think you bring a lot. I think you guys bring a very balanced, beautiful energy to it. And I've enjoyed the podcast I've listened to and seen thus far. And I'm going to get my ticket for the retreat in Spain. And everybody, you can learn about it at thehumanunleashed.com. And I look forward to talking to you again, Phil. Okay?
Stephanie, thank you so much.
Thanks, Phil.